thank you, Suzanne and Craft Contemporary, for always being such inspiration and support for our work. My name is Roshi Rahnama. I am a lawyer, recovering lawyer turned art advocate, and now I have an Iranian contemporary art platform with a permanent location in downtown Los Angeles. We started the platform as of 2015 with a series of pop-up public initiatives entitled Art Brief. Like Suzanne was saying, we had those at Arena One in Santa Monica, and now we have a full-blown roster of artists and a gallery in downtown Los Angeles focusing exclusively on Iranian contemporary art. What brought me here is the question. I have been living and working and creating relationships within the community in Los Angeles and beyond, as an active Iranian woman, American, and I felt I owed an obligation to the community once I tapered off my law career to give back in a meaningful way. I started volunteering with Farhang Foundation, which is an incredible organization that promotes Iranian art and culture for the benefit of the community at large, back, I believe, about 10 years ago. And that's about when, 8 to 10 years ago, that's when Suzanne and I met as I chair the Fine Arts Council. I was the founding Fine Arts Council chair. And within that exploration of bringing that council to life and having meaningful work come through that council, I became more familiar with the void that was present in the proper presentation and representation of Iranian contemporary artists. So my career as a lawyer and my passion for art and community just basically merged and called me into action by having me start this endeavor that I called ADVOCARTSY, because it's truly a marriage between an advocacy project and art. And the word is a little tough to pronounce, but it has meaning. And if we can say Google and Yahoo, hopefully ADVOCARTSY will become familiar to people's ears as well. We're hopeful. I am a lawyer by practice, so that brings some level of responsibility to the practice that I've taken on. And for me to bring proper presentation and attention to the artist space that we showcase is key. And for Suzanne to entrust us with our mission, she has not yet missed any of our pop-up endeavors or an exhibition. And in Los Angeles, that is a major task, and I'm forever grateful for her support. And Craft Contemporary is a fantastic museum because it is a home to meaningful artful endeavors and a sense of community. And I thank you for giving us today to share our work with your members.
So we're excited to get take a look. I've been enticing everyone, and tell us a little bit about Mohammad Barrangi.
So Mohammad Barrangi is an Iranian-born artist. He is a printmaker as well as an illustrator, and you will see how the two skills come together as he creates his body of work. He has been, for the past few years, living in London. He was first a resident of Art House as he arrived in the UK and was supported profoundly. He has, as of about a year or so ago, moved to London from Wakefield to complete his studies at the Royal Drawing School. He's about to complete that. And what is amazing about Mohammad is his dedication to his craft and his resilience as a human being generally. As you will note, he has had to deal with becoming a refugee, finding a new home in London, and overcoming various challenges. But his concept of how he relates to life as a regular day-to-day experience is very positive and whimsical and fluid as it articulates, as it's seen through his work, as I'll share with you soon. Interesting about Mohammad is that despite his challenges, he has one underdeveloped arm, and you would never know that about him, because he is an Olympic medal winner in sprinting, and his work is so meticulous that you would never notice that, and at times it never comes to mind. But as the video that we're going to share with you shows how he has overcome that challenge in his life, and he's truly an inspiration for me and whoever gets to know him. So with that, you may want to go into the video.
Okay, so we wanted to show you a short, we said 8 minutes, Andres. I didn't introduce Andres, I just went right forward, but he's introduced himself in a way. So we are enjoying technical support from Andres Estrada, who works with us. Can you roll this video that is really interesting, and you sort of get to meet the artist?
محمد برنگی هستم، متولد ایران و البته شمال ایران، رشت. حدود 9 ساله که به طور مداوم تصویرگری کتاب میکنم و توی جشنواره‌های مختلف شرکت میکنم و سعی میکنم که توی این زمینه به طور حرفه‌ای زندگیمو پیش ببرم. در خصوص سوالی که از من پرسیده شد که روال کارم به چه صورته و چطور کار میکنم، معمولا زمان خاصی نداره. من هر روز به طور کل، حالا یا به دیدن کارهای مختلف توی سایت‌های مختلف زمانمو میذارم یا برای کار کردن، و کارم به این صورت شروع میشه که اول با جوهر و قلمی که البته مربوط به خوشنویسی ایرانی هستش، کاراکترام رو میکشم و بعد با جوهر، با خوشنویسی ایرانی و البته تایپ ایرانی کاراکترام رو جمع جور میکنم و بهشون شخصیت میدم. روال کارم به طور کل به صورت روزانه اینه که معمولا حالا میام استودیوم و حالا شروع میکنم به کار کردن و معمولا کاراکترهام رو روی قصد و غرض قبلی، یا مثلا به این فکر بکنم که قبلا قراره چی بکشم، نه، شاید خیلی به صورت اتفاقی باشه و حتی خیلی به صورت اجتماعی نگاه بکنم به داستان. و دوست دارم کاراکترام بعضی اوقات مربوط به روایتگری اون داستانی که الان توی دنیا داره پیش میاد و معمولا به این صورته که با قلم اول می نویسم و با جوهر کاراکترام رو شکل میدم و بهشون جون میدم و بعد به کمک پرینت در واقع یک نسخه ازش میگیرم و چاپ میزنم. معمولا هم کاغذهامو خودم درست میکنم و بخشی از کاراکترهامو اگر نگاه بکنید میبینید که خیلی کات شده هست، به این دلیلی که من از پام کمک میگیرم برای بروش زدن کارهام و همین فکر میکنم یه شخصیت خاصی به کارم داده. و به طور کل حالا جدیدن یا حالا نمیدونم به چه صورت در خودم، این در درون خودم کاراکترها معمولا دست ندارن و این به این خاطر شاید از درون خودم میاد و به خاطر اینکه خودم دستم مشکل داره. ولی کن کار روال روزانم به این صورته و روال کاریم به این صورته. کاغذ دستساز خودم و دست نوشته های خودم و تمام سعیم هم میکنم که کارهام به شرق و از المان هایی که توی شرق هست الهام گرفته بشه تا به مخاطبم به نوعی کمک بشه که با نگاه کردن به کارم سفر کنه به ایران، سفر کنه به شرق. شاید برای بعضی از مخاطبا همچین شانسی وجود نداشته باشه که بخوان سفر بکنن و این پروسه کاریم برای خودم به شخصه به این صورته که حالا علایقی که خودم دارم، کارهام بیشتر الهام گرفته از شرقه، از جایی که متولد شدم، از المانهایی که میدیدم از کودکی و باهاشون سر و کار داشتم. چون همیشه یادمه توی محله‌ای که زندگی میکردیم محله قدیمی بود، بعد روی دیوار نگاره ها و روی دیوارهای خونه ها همیشه پر از پرنده هایی بودش که داشتن همدیگر رو نگاه میکردن یا حتی تایپ هایی که روی سردرهای خونه نوشته بود که خوش آمد میگفت به آدمایی که وارد اون خونه میشدن. در صورت این همیشه از کودکی با من بود و خودم فکر میکنم که هر هنرمندی میتونه با استفاده از المان‌هایی که تو کشور خودش هست، تو شهر خودش هست، میتونه مخاطبای بهتری جذب کنه. چون همیشه تصور میکنم یه سری آدما هستن که هرگز سفر نمیکنن و هرگز این فرصت رو ندارن که به کشورهای دیگه برن و با آداب، با نوع سیستم زندگی اون آدما آشنا بشن. ولی من سعی میکنم با کار کردنم و استفاده کردن از این المان‌ها توی کارام مخاطب رو دعوت کنم که ایران رو ببینن و نوع تفکر، نوع نگاه من رو به کار ببینن چجوریه و امیدوارم که توی این زمینه هم تونسته باشم یه قدم کوچیکی بذارم. و به طور کل زندگی کردن در اینجا و در ایران یکی از تفاوتاش اینه که البته من دوست دارم خیلی کلی بهش جواب بدم و به صورت خیلی اجتماعی. به طور کل خب من خودم یک فرد معلول هستم و همیشه در ایران اول به یک چشم یک معلول نگاه میکنم و بعد موارد دیگه میاد جلو. و حالا آرتیست بودن یا ورزشکار بودن، چون من ورزشم میکنم. ولی فکر میکنم اینجا نگاه انسان ها به یک فرد معلول خیلی نگاه متفاوتیه. اول از همه که معلولیتی وجود نداره به طور کل برای به دید اینها و به صورت کلی در اینجا خیلی خوشحالترم چون میتونم به طور روزانه کار بکنم و میتونم کلی هم کمک میگیرم ازشون، با اینکه من یک فردی هستم که تازه اومدم اینجا و دارم تازه رشد میکنم و خب نوع سیستم زندگیم در ایران یک به صورت دیگه ای بود و وقتی مهاجرت میکنید و میاد یک کشور دیگه مسلما اوایل تنها هستید و کلی پیش زمینه توی ذهنتون از ایران هست که میخواید با اینجا مقایسه کنید. ولی به طور کل خیلی خیلی فکر میکنم این مقایسه ها داره روز به روز کمتر میشه و کمک اینها و رفتار خوبی که اینها نسبت به من دارن و حالا هر انسان دیگه‌ای و هر آرتیست دیگه‌ای خیلی رفتار درستیه و به طور کل برام خیلی خوشاینده که زندگیم رو انتخاب شد و خواستم که اینجا زندگی بکنم و برام خیلی خوشاینده و خیلی خوشحالم.
Thank you. I know you might have some additional questions, and so any of you want to add questions to the chat, I could be able to pick them up as we go forward. But I'm thinking, Roshi, maybe you want to now take us into the exhibition, and as the show is called Conference of Birds. I thought maybe a next thing that I'd love for you to do is tell us a little bit about what is the Conference of Birds and how does it relate to this exhibition?
Of course. Bear with me as we transition into, I'm on a phone and I'm trying to do this. Okay, so as Suzanne said, this exhibition is called the Conference of the Birds, and it is based on a very iconic poem by a mystic sage, Attar, and it's about a mystic experience of a flock of birds that go in search of finding their ruler. And the reason this body of work came into being is that Mohammad often gets commissioned to illustrate books as well as murals, but he was commissioned specifically to illustrate a book that was recently printed in Iran based on the Conference of the Birds by Attar. And the works that we are showcasing, for the most part, with the exception of a few additional works that were created for this exhibition, are from that illustrative book. We have a few of those books here, but unfortunately they were so limited in number. Hopefully we will soon have more copies of the book, but the travel that the birds undertake is to find their ruler, and they travel 7 valleys, the 7 valleys representing the concept of overcoming various human conditions as they discover their own higher self, and they see themselves in one bird referred to as the Seymour, which is a play on words. The Seymour is also known in the English terminology as the phoenix, and has, of course, its own symbolism attached to it. In Iranian mystic writing and myth, the Seymour is representative of the actual highest form of self. And the 30 birds that remain during this travel in the Attar's poem see themselves in the Seymour, which is the phoenix, but in Persian, Seymour also means 30 birds.
Are the numbers significant, Roshi? Is 30 a
There
number
is some concepts of numerology at play. The number 3, the number 0, and the number 30. But there is some significance, but I don't want to go into that today. But they all have very much, the 7 valleys have significance with the number 7. These concepts show themselves repeatedly in various Iranian literature and myth and philosophy. And we could talk hours and hours about that in itself. But the reason I wanted to talk to you about the book is, one, a lot of the works that we're showing here are the unique works that went into the illustration. And for example, this piece that you have seen that we used for the promotion of the exhibition, which is the masked peacock. And the other point that I wanted to make about how appropriately Mohammad has taken on his method and his style of work, tying in a very old an ancient book and very harmoniously creating images that are timeless. They can be almost like very classic antique pieces, but relate perfectly into the contemporary realm. And this is precisely why his style of work has been under the eye of British Museum. But the British Museum has acquired 2 works by Mohammad already. And he was asked to do a live installation at the museum in the opening of their last East Meets West exhibition, which was past November of 2019. I don't count 2020, so November 2019, he did a live installation of a large mural at the front entry of the British Museum. And he was asked to do a live installation at the Tate Modern as well a few years back. And he consistently gets invited to do murals in the United Kingdom and asked to do books on different topics.
Let me ask you a question. Let me stop you right there, actually. Can you go back up there? So one of the things I noticed was that almost all of the birds in this series are female. They're very gendered. And using the kind of photographic phase, that particular one that you just moved away from was one of the few that didn't seem to.
Yes, you're so good. So absolutely. Let me show a few of the other examples that are. Mohammad has an exceptional affinity to honoring women. He has an incredible relationship with his mom, which was a huge source of support in his world. And he has a lot of respect for female figures in his life, and also honors them by using images of Iranian female figures in the face of the birds here and in other bodies of work. Like, for example, I set out this other body of work here from his other, this is a large piece from his other series of work from his Wonderland series. Again, using a female as a protagonist of the piece. So
is it the same female, actually? Are they all the same?
He uses the same multiple faces show themselves routinely, but he adds to that all the time. So he's always creating new characters. The one that you actually put your finger on is the crowned owl. And this is Mohammed's self-portrait. So the owls are him.
Oh, that's great. That's really great. It's really interesting. I mean, one of the things that you brought up, and I think I read that the original poem was written in 1177. And I've noticed over the years that so many contemporary Iranian artists reference really ancient materials and poetry from what I guess was sort of the Middle Ages. What is so interesting to contemporary artists about the past?
Yes, great point. In this case, of course, he was asked to illustrate a book on the topic. So in this instance, it was obvious why, because it was about that tale. But you are absolutely right. There is a persistence showing and use of poetry and ancient mystic tales, such as the Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, or, for example, Rumi poetry that finds its way in various contemporary Iranian artists' works. And it has a very simple explanation. For the Iranian community at large, the word and reference, the mystic word and the awareness of these bodies of work, such as the Book of Kings by Shahnameh by Ferdowsi, and Rumi poetry or Hafiz poetry or other mystic stories are really ingrained in the identity of the community. And whenever the artist is trying to articulate their own meaning or their own presentation in the work, they tap into what is known to them by way of symbolism. And the symbolism then gets articulated towards by using those references. So you're absolutely correct. That's why you do see a lot of artists that refer to poetry or ancient text or mystic stories in their work. And you saw that very vividly in Lakhma's last exhibition as well, curated by Linda Kamaroff, in the field of empty days, that the reference to the past and poetry is really present in the contemporary Iranian world.
It's funny too to see these masks, given that our new life contains so many of these masks. And I'm drawn to that beak mask because it was a plague mask. That same mask was used as a plague mask during the 17th century in Europe. Is there any connection there, do you think, for this artist, or am I just kind of reading into
Actually,
it?
other than synchronicity, no, there actually is a great story behind the masks. These works were originally unmasked, the female faces, but when the book was supposed to be printed in Iran, the publishing company requested that he cover the female faces, which ended up to be incredibly meaningful within the concept of the story, because the whole story is about coming in touch, unmasking yourself, finding your true self, the universe. But he's done a great job in incorporating the masks. Some of the images don't have masks, like I can show you.
Were all these, is every single image in this exhibition in the book, or just some of them?
Well, we have additional work in the exhibition that was not in the book.
Got it.
And there are works beyond what we're showing that were in the book. So, so it's not that the exhibition has some works not in the book, and some of the works that were in the book are not in the exhibition.
Okay.
Because the book is about 100 pages, so.
So one of the things we've gotten one question about process, and I think that's something that that I'd love to ask you a little bit more about. So the one question we got really was about the pen that we showed in the video. Does that have a brush tip? Do you know, or does that?
No, the pen that he's using, I believe the one they saw in the video, is a wooden calligraphy pen that's used for the calligraphy of Iranian, like traditional calligraphy pen. And it's a wooden, I forget the name, it just escapes me. It's like they cut into, it's a dried, I want to say willow, but it's not a willow. It's a dried stem, and then they shave it to create bamboo. It's a bamboo. Thank you very much. The bamboo, and then they shave it to create the tip of the pen, which thereby is used to do the traditional calligraphy. He uses that to create the images. And once he just another point about the process, he creates these characters, and then he may reuse the same character in other works because he collages the pieces on, like this character you find in other works.
So I have two things. So one is,
yes,
when you keep going back to that one image, and it reminds me that I wanted to ask you about it because I want to go back to process, but I don't want to forget. There's the one with the padlocks. You just passed it. Yeah. So that really intrigued me, just because that mass bird is just sitting among a ton of padlocks. And I just wondered if you had spent any time thinking about that particular image or had any insights.
You got cut off. What was the actual question?
Oh, I mean, just have you spent any time thinking about this image, or do you have any insights?
I actually find this piece exceptionally intriguing, and it's interesting you pointed to this because there are a lot of birds, and this one is a little bit more, I could say, complicated. And do you see all the padlocks? The padlocks, to me, are a reference to a series of an era of work. I don't even know if he intentionally was referring to this, but there is an era, there is a series of works that is referred to as the Saqakhane era of Iranian, in the Iranian modern paintings. And they very much use padlocks and references like that. Like Parviz Tanavoli has used padlocks in a lot of his works. So I don't know what his reference here is, but it's interesting that you point to this image as well. I love this piece.
Yeah. And tell us a little bit about the text too, because the
other thing you and I have previously spoken of is that, and there is a lot of references to text in some of the contemporary Iranian works, and that is for multiple reasons. One of here, Mohammad is really at times, in my eye, referring to old manuscript works, which you may have seen in museums, and possibly the Shahnameh pages, or old manuscripts that are the poetry that was manuscripted and visualized. So I think he is using that very strategically here, but it is not intended to convey any kind of meaning. It is basically there as a visual reference. And in Iranian art, you often see calligraphy, some just traditionally to convey the text, but more in the contemporary art world, it's either to create distortion or to bring some other meaning using the text, and not necessarily does the text have to to say what it's saying. It's just adding a layer to the intention of the artist's communication. This piece that you were talking about is an exception, because he is using the words in Persian that says, in Farsi, it says, man khurus nistam, which means I am not a rooster, but referencing that he is not a warrior or a fighter.
That's really, yeah.
And I'll show you a little bit more about the process.
I just love this image.
I know.
You tell me, and I don't want to forget to tell us a little bit about how it was made, because you said the sizes of depend on the different sizes are made differently.
Correct. So the characters that once he creates a character, because each of the paper prints are collaged. So because he reverse prints the characters onto each piece. And keep in mind, each of these pieces are absolutely unique. So although you may see characters showing up and that you've seen elsewhere, each piece is absolutely unique.
And he was using like lighter fluid to, or like a...
Yeah, so he uses some kind of fluid to transfer, and you will see the outlining that he leaves actually on the page. So there's a shadow type of marcation that remains on the work. And this is a fantastic one to show that with.
I love that.
You have,
yeah.
Okay, Anusha wants to see the tree work. So this piece is exceptionally amazing because you have the writing, you have him, you have the woman unmasked, and it's just beautiful. And I have to tell you that there are certain imperfections that are embedded in the work that just make it uniquely a Mohammad Barrangi piece, especially on the works on paper. And we'll go into, this is one of his works that have some color in it.
Is that drawn on the tree? Is that a separate kind of process, or is that still a print?
No, it's still a print. Mohammad is transitioning into more color in his work. So this era of his work is actually going to be encapsulated in my book because he's moving on. And again, let's talk about his process in the larger pieces. We talked about the process on the smaller works on paper. On the larger works, so he creates a final image, and then he actually expands that image to the desired size. He then prints out, I believe there are A4 8x11 pages that he reverse prints. And if you notice, there's demarcations on the piece indicating the delineation of each page that he has reverse printed back to create the final image. And just to remind you that he did one of a larger scale of this piece. He did a live installation at the entry hall of the British Museum over a span of 3 to 4 days, as he did at Tate Modern. And it would have been a dream to be able to emulate that in Los Angeles, and hopefully we'll put that on a wish list in the coming years.
That'd be incredible. And then the process you said is slightly different when he gets to a smaller scale.
The process on the smaller scale is that once he creates the character, then he collage prints it, that he creates a collage, and then he creates this unique print. Versus in the larger pieces where he has to, once he creates a small piece, then he has to expand it to size and then prints it in like piece by piece, reverse prints it on a large canvas. Now we have on our website actual working videos of Mohammad creating the large scale works. So if you're interested, on the website, you can go and view those actual Mohammad at work on the large scale pieces.
Yeah, I was wondering too, yes, we got two questions, and one was from Patricia that really asked about the handmade paper, because you had mentioned that as well. So all of this paper is handmade?
Yes, I believe with that, I believe he alters the paper himself. So the finish is done by him.
What does that mean? Do you?
I don't exactly know the process on that, but I believe he somehow, in order to get that specific coloring, but I don't know more about that part of it.
Okay. So we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
Katie also mentioned she didn't really understand the printing process. She said they're not woodcuts, they're not lithographs. How are they reverse printed? And I guess I was thinking, I remember watching him in the video. Somebody else responded. A video of artists speaking more about his process. Good, thank you. One of the things was the use of that fluid to take images, and I remember Robert Rauschenberg had worked a lot with that, and had actually a series at MoCA that he did of Dante's Inferno drawings, actually, oddly enough, that were where you took the image from, a lot of times from magazine or newspaper, and you cut it out, and then you wiped it with, actually we used to use lighter fluid to do this, I guess.
That's exactly what's happening here.
Yeah, and then you just kind of scraped it on and with a burnisher, and then that was the image. So it's exactly the process he's using. Yeah,
and that's why you get a flip image, because it's flipped. So again.
Yeah, try this at home. You can.
Yeah. Or don't try this at home.
Open the windows.
Keep your mask on.
Really good. I'm noticing a lot of red dots. So a lot of this work is going to make its way into homes, I guess.
Yes, many of them in Los Angeles. So hopefully you have friends who have good taste.
Yeah, we'll get to see them again. So your hope is at some point to bring him actually here then.
Well, definitely. We would love to. And right now, everything is on hold, of course. So in the near future, we're always considering opportunities to show more work by him. He's creating a whole new body of work. So once we can, next show, we would love to have him here in person and hopefully do a live installation at a future event, and maybe at the museum.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, it would be a great opportunity to see him, meet him, get familiar with his process firsthand, just to let you know, on the website, we have a questionnaire that he did a workshop at the British Museum in conjunction with that live installation. And there is a whole interview on our website where he, in his own words, talks about his process.
Oh, that's very cool. All right, we'll have to do that. And a really nice link, if you haven't seen it in the chat, of the story of Persian locks that Nancy posted. So
fantastic.
I'm eager to learn more about that. So we have just a few more minutes. I didn't want to, keep you all too long because I know your time is valuable and Zoom time can go on. But did anybody have any particular observations or comments or questions that they wanted to actually unmute themselves and say in their own voice?
Yeah.
Madan, what? You have to unmute though, don't forget.
Yes, and thank you. Well done on the pronunciation. My name is Ladan Akbarnia. Hi, Roshi Jun.
Hi, Ladan.
Nice to see you and to see this fantastic exhibition virtually. I'm actually a curator at the San Diego Museum of Art, and after 10 years of being a curator at the British Museum. So while my colleague Venetia Porter was covering contemporary, I did some of the contemporary related to Iran with her, but I left in 2019 and the exhibition was up after I left. So I missed that demonstration, but I do know that one of the big drives in that collection has been to collect works on paper. And in the UK, as many of you know, how each of the national museums sort of takes on one niche of collecting, but there has become increasing overlap between the Tate Modern and the British Museum. But I'm hoping that we can start collecting contemporary at San Diego. And I heard a lot about your museum really through Farhang Foundation, in fact, and all the wonderful things that you do. So I'm really happy to be listening today, but my observation has just been, I'm fascinated not only by the texturing in Barrangi's work, but that story, it's the technique he's using and the red lines, because I covered Art of the Book especially, and I'm fascinated by the way that he's using that red line, which is usually the sort of first step in trying to map out the book. The calligrapher would then come and write into certain quarters or sections of, and then the illustration would come after that. And often this was all done as part of a workshop. And he, of course, is the whole workshop here. But what fascinates me is that style where you're not seeing so much background and a whole scene that's built with many perspectives. It's more like the very, very earliest drawings and paintings in Arab manuscripts and early Persian manuscripts that were mostly scientific in nature. And that particular text, I haven't seen at least done in that way. So even the mirroring of some of those pieces where they have mirror images, those remind me of Al-Sufi's book of the book of stars and, all things that have to do more with astrology and astronomy. So I love the way that he's layering all these different references in his work. And you don't necessarily need to know all of them. You can understand the images at any level. And the locks, all of those locks remind me of that too. Even in Iran, we have these bowls, metal bowls that will have little keys attached to them. Sometimes they can even be like bits of mirrors that came from China. And they're meant to take you through each layer of unlocking another layer of knowledge, which are these steps on the way to finding this ultimate union with God, which is the ultimate goal in the book as well. So I'm just really, really fascinated by it. And you've done such a beautiful installation. And I look forward to seeing more.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I feel like, Tom and Diana, you got to meet. They're also in San Diego, but you raised your hand? Yeah.
Yeah, we're a whole delegation, looks like, of 3. I was wondering about the one picture with the 3 birds in flight with the unmasked women's faces, which of course bring to mind angels in any other Italian or Dutch paintings. Do you think this is intentional? Is it pure coincidence? Is there any reason behind it, any referencing?
I haven't spoken to Mohammad about that. I do believe he, like Laudan was just saying, he is always inspired by various images and imagery. Of course, the specific illustrative book was regarding the flight of traveling of the birds, a migration of the birds. So I think that may have lent itself naturally for that. And he uses imagery of female faces in his work all the time. And let me, as we're going, let me try to see if I can get into that piece. I believe you're referring to this work.
Yes.
Yeah, it does remind you of the Italian classics, but also it's happening here in different form. It's a migration.
But no faces.
Yeah, that helps with that one for it not to have been masked, but also in this piece. Birds in flight, but also referring to what Laudan was just saying, you have the outline, which is reminiscent of the old manuscripts with the Persian calligraphy, and then the main landscape.
It's very similar too to this Mongol manuscript, Jamia Tabarikh, which shows a lot of relationship, a strong relationship to to East Asia as well, to what was called sort of blanket China or Qin and Machin. So that's really interesting too, because that has a lot less of a palette. It's more ink washes, and so if you look at some Chinese painting too, you'll see there'll be some affinities.
Lad, and what museum are you at in San Diego again?
The San Diego Museum of Art.
Oh, okay.
We know it.
It's all a big family here. And I wanted to show again that what Laudan was referring to in this work that Suzanne swoons over all the time. Again, with, and again, what makes this uniquely Mohammad's is you do realize that these are not perfect lines. And that is just what makes the work even more special.
Sounds great. Well, thank you so much, Roshi. I just really great to see this show again. I'm glad. It's always better to see it twice, you know, even if once is virtually.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to share this body of work with more people. And,
so what's your plan? Yeah, I know you were going to extend this show, and are people allowed to come visit or not anymore, or how are you?
Well, we're kind of laying low right now because of the state of affairs in Los Angeles. I even asked my assistant not to be here, just to be cautious, and we want to be cautious for our collectors and visitors. We are extending the show, and we're hopeful to announce visits soon. There is a virtual tour link that I believe you've shared with everyone.
Yes.
And if you would like to be in touch with us and learn about opportunities to come in and visit personally, please do email me or our info email at info@advocartsy.com, and we'll keep you posted about opportunities to come in and visit in person. Or we can do a group visit if that's something that you're interested in. Right now, we're holding off on in-person visits.
So, and then you were saying we could end by sharing a project that we are going to be doing together coming up. got this year, right?
Yes, we're so excited. ADVOCARTSY and Craft Contemporary will meet again for the solo exhibition of works by Pooya Afshar in fall of this year, which will be here before we know it. Pooya Afshar is another exceptional artist that we have the honor of working with. He will be presenting a multi, he will be showing video, he will be showing augmented reality, paintings, drawings, and a lot more in a solo exhibition on the second floor of Craft Museum. And we've been working on that for a while now, and it's getting close, right, Suzanne?
Yeah, I guess it is. Not that I have any concept of time anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thank you so much, all of you who joined us today. I cannot thank you enough for staying with us and being members. It's meant so much to me personally, and it's really kept me going during this pandemic. So thank you. And a lot of you contributed to Year in Giving, and I just want to say it's just, my heart is large. I look forward to seeing you again next month. I don't know what we're going to be doing, but I will be posting it in my week from Saturday in our next bulletin. So,
well, in closing, I want to thank you, Suzanne. You're always the most generous, warm-hearted person to work with in this world of art, and it's always a pleasure being with you and your friends.
thank you so much. Thank you. All right, so until we meet again.
Yeah, and we will be meeting for the next studio visit towards the end of February. We'll send you a bit more information. With the artist that we're talking to is an artist that's going to be part of our upcoming exhibition, Making Time, which is a group exhibition that's going to showcase artists that have had solo exhibitions at the museum as a recap of some of the work that we've done in the past 5 to 10 years. And the name of the artist that we're talking to, and we're going to be confirming the date in the next couple of days, is Shireen Gerges.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's really nice. All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.